Story 1. I've heard people say that current medical dramas will qualify as horror shows when compared to the medicine of the future. I tried to think of what a medical drama in 1925 would look like, and yes, that makes sense. Story 2. It won't take 50 years. Went to donate blood the other day and they stuck this weird little device on my finger that got my hemoglobin number where before they stabbed my finger. Medical advances are made every day, we just don't notice. Story 3. Use plastic round food all the time, such as food in plastic packaging. Cutting food on plastic cutting boards, drinking from plastic straws, and from plastic bottles. Plastic is everywhere all the time. Story 4. I hope by 2075 there is an electrocardiogram vest that replaces the need to stick sensors on flesh over chest and belly hair. I know not all bodies are the same, but this magic vest would accommodate. Story 5. Animal captivity for entertainment, such as drug dolphins in resorts and whales at SeaWorld, and the scale at which we farm animals in factories and decimate ocean life, such as hundreds of billions, is repulsive. The way we treat animals is unacceptable. Story 6. The infant adoption industry in the United States, hopefully. There are race-based price lists. My own heritage was taken off the paperwork because I was worth up to $60,000 without it. My adoptive parents waited years and years for a white able-bodied baby, then settled for me instead. This industry is part of the reason Roe versus Wade was overturned. It's a mostly unregulated industry that profits off selling babies. Literally. The few laws we do have were put in place by a woman named Georgia Tann. She was a posthumously convicted child trafficker and pedophile who would steal children from young or marginalized women and sell them to wealthy and fertile couples. She kidnapped kids from hospitals and preschools. The laws were put in place by wealthy politicians to help her hide her thousands of kidnappings through closing adoptions and rewriting our birth certificates. The lawmakers received children from her as a bribe or payment. She is the mother of modern-day adoption and the reason I don't have the right to obtain my original birth certificate. Story 7. Maybe talking about how everyone used to have a smartphone and would stare at it all day. How could anyone tolerate those things when we are now using our fingers or even our minds to create a user interface by swiping in the air? Story 8. Honestly, I think people will look back and be horrified by how much we rely on non-renewable energy and how we let climate change get so bad. Like, wait, they just burned stuff for power and drove gas cars everywhere? Or maybe even how we handle things like food waste or single-use plastics. Future people will probably think we were super wasteful and short-sighted. Hopefully by the year 2075, we've figured out way better ways to take care of the planet. Story 9. Treating people suffering from chronic pain as drug-seeking junkies is problematic. It would be amazing if there were advances in medicine that allow for effective treatment without harming the patient. I'd like to think that chronic pain can be cured, but that is probably not realistic unless humanity's ability to control the central nervous system makes some major advances. Story 10. As an orthopedic surgeon, I always think people will cringe in the future at what is routine now. You used to drill rods and screws into broken bones? What were you all thinking? I pray for either injectable bone-healing bots or some science fiction device that helps regenerate new tissue. Story 11. Probably driving ourselves, at least by the turn of the new century. The only people who drive themselves will be enthusiasts with a niche hobby, until it's outlawed completely, as humans are simply far more prone to error than computers are. Story 12. In general, workers' rights in America are limited. Just look at Europe, they receive over 5 weeks of paid vacation time, paid parental leave, and protection against being fired without cause. Story 13. Hopefully, chemotherapy and radiation will be a thing of the past, and new ways to fight cancer will be discovered. Also, let's figure out something to use besides a needle because I hate those things. Story 14. Animal agriculture. Once cell-cultured meats can be created at a large enough scale, and they will be able to be, I imagine a lot of people will opt for them over regular meat, especially if it ends up being cheaper. Story 15. Engineered quartz stone countertops. It turns out that this material is extremely dangerous to produce as the silica dust is extremely fine and damages lungs, even with protection. What we thought was sufficient protection for workers is not, and it is likely to be phased out or the production banned. Story 16. I think people in the future will probably think it was barbaric that women and girls were not allowed to decide what to do with their bodies because lawmakers valued their fetuses more. Story 17. My hopes are that factory farms will die out. I understand the need for food. I don't eat meat, but I don't begrudge people their beef or chicken. However, the conditions and practices inherent in factory farming are absolutely horrendous and barbaric. We are so far separated from where we get our food that people seem not to care or turn a blind eye. I really hope it changes, though. Factory farms and slaughterhouses are just awful, both for the animals and the people that work there. Story 18, probably killing animals for food. Vegans today might be looked back on as the modern Martin Luther King Jr., and every time a movie shows people eating animal meat, people would say it was a different time. Story 19, Trump and Make America Great Again will be looked upon in a very negative light in the future. Trump is very obviously bad for America. There also is no debate over the fact that he is racist, especially since he was sued in 1973 for racist housing practices. Seriously, do you know how racist someone would have to be in the 1970s in order to be sued by the government? And then again in 1993, he had to testify in front of Congress for racist policies at his casinos. Story 20. I find the number of people saying the word abortion here to be absolutely wild. Sure, it's an unpleasant subject, but I would prefer women had safer options than a dirty knitting needle. Story 21. When students ask me how people let such terrible things just happen or become normal, I mention that most of us wear clothing and use things we know are likely made by incredibly low-wage workers, if not often children. And we don't mind because we don't see it and it's cheap. Story 22. Treat people badly because they live a different lifestyle than you do. Owning guns is another one. I don't have a lot of faith that this will happen though because we thought this in the 1960s and look at where we are. Story 23. The normalization of athletic coaches verbally abusing kids is concerning because things that would constitute child abuse in any other situation are somehow socially acceptable if a child happens to be holding a ball. Story 24. Eat meat. And before people criticize me, I eat meat myself. But with the way these newer generations are turning vegan, watch that be frowned upon, much like smoking. Story 25. I live in South Carolina, and they just reintroduced legislation to give women who seek abortion the death penalty. I don't know, but that seems pretty damn barbaric to me. Story 26. Spending 5 days working hard at a workplace. Having 2 days off to prepare for it all over again. Abundance needs to be for everyone, not just the wealthy. Story 27. Probably most of the behavior that contributed to climate change. There probably will also be a desperate measure to support a crumbling global population, which will mean that there will be a feeling that measures opposed to supporting the elderly will be enacted that would be considered barbaric now. Story 28. Guns that fire metal bullets and cause their victims to bleed out are so uncivilized compared to the Acme disintegration laser that reduces the target's matter to scattered atoms. Story 29. The way the right suddenly feels entitled to criticize transgender folks. I guess demonizing gay individuals didn't work as planned, so now they have moved on to a smaller, less powerful group to other. Story 30. Carrying a huge, expensive phone with you wherever you go. Whatever computer we develop will be extremely portable and non-cumbersome, like a complete computer and user interface inside a contact lens or something. Story 31. What they are calling gender-affirming surgery will be looked upon with horror, similar to how we view the lobotomy with horror. It will not take until 2075, though. Story 32. Honestly, probably homelessness in the sense that the problem persists for so long with very few solutions, with people saying inhumane things about another human being. I can only hope that will no longer be an issue in the future. Story 33. The way transgender people are treated is extremely concerning. They are practically being outlawed in the United States, and the United Kingdom is making it as difficult as possible to receive any medical treatment. The majority of countries, including pretty much all of Europe and the United States, don't even follow the United Nations human rights for transgender people. The way politicians speak about transgender people is truly disgusting, and the way I hear some people speak about transgender people is incredibly vile. Maybe I'm being optimistic, but I'd love to see a world where we look back and recognize how horrendous the treatment of transgender people was compared to what it will be like in 50 years. One can only hope at the end of the day. Story 34. The treatment of transgender people. We are being attacked constantly by our own government and our friends and family, and no one except us seems to truly care. Prove me right, Reddit, I know you will. Story 35. Dust, especially in trades, is a serious concern. Silicosis took years to finally be recognized as a health issue and can kill you with a few years of exposure. I bet we are going to find that a lot of other dust-creating activities will kill you in unexpected ways. After that, viruses. We know that multiple sclerosis is caused by the Epstein-Barr virus, but I bet there's a whole host of other medical ailments that stem directly from an infection years or decades earlier. Story 36. How wasteful we are as a society. People in 2075 will look back at us with disgust at our shameless destruction when they are living in a wasteland that has to ration everything. Story 37. Many psychiatric drugs of today, like antidepressants and antipsychotics, will surely be less. We are hammering a nail with a sledgehammer because that is all we currently know how to do. Drugs with negative long-term health impacts. Story 38. If the left becomes the dominant force in politics, it will be things like the lack of public toilets, hostile architecture to make homeless people's lives even more miserable, and people acting like vaccines are a choice that you can just opt out of with no consequences. If the right takes over, it will be things like paying taxes to fund social programs, raising children without a mother and father, strict religious dogma, and talking to foreigners or people of a different race. Story 39. Not barbaric, but getting a takeaway whenever we want one. Climate change means we are heading towards worldwide food shortages. God only knows what state the planet will be in another 50 years, but it won't be good. Story 40. Going to the grocery store. With everyone ordering stuff online, I feel like eventually, grocery stores might get phased out somehow. People are going to be looking back and be like, everyone going to a building to get their food, trying to get there before everyone else, before everything runs out. Story 41. Hopefully, the cancer treatments we have today will improve. We need better options. I've never been through it, but from what I've heard from others, it's pure agony. I cannot even begin to imagine. Story 42. The optimist in me hopes that slaughterhouses will be seen as barbaric by wider society, but 50 years feels too soon, sadly. Most people I know see circumcision as barbaric. I hope it becomes truly reprehensible to more and more people. Story 43. Basically, everything we do is barbaric, especially to those who will be living in 2075 and suffering from our actions. Hopefully, those who put all these influencers on a pedestal, whose main mission is to sell you products on behalf of Lord Bezos and his comrades, will be around to see some of it. Story 44. People paying for jeans with holes and the hem cut off looking shipwrecked, paying for cutoffs, paying for your hair to look like it has roots and needs dye, dyeing your hair green or blue like announcing you're crazy, paying for all these subscriptions, identifying as a frog or whatever, blowing out birthday candles like EW. Nobody will buy fireworks to set off at home because it's a dangerous fire hazard and pollution, and instead of fireworks shows, we'll watch drones. I think we'll decorate a tree for every holiday instead of just Christmas. I think our phones won't need to be plugged in to charge. I think we'll all talk to turn on lights, flush toilets, open doors, set alarms, turn on water, make calls, check the weather, and search online as every home, business, and vehicle will be fully automated. No light switches, buttons, or knobs. Stores will all be online, and your refrigerator will automatically order your groceries from a service like Amazon for delivery. Vehicles will be solar-powered, and we'll have heated driveways and sidewalks so we don't shovel. Cash won't exist, and neither will cards and checks, because you'll scan an app on your phone or smartwatch or use your fingerprints or eyes. We won't use sticks for pregnancy tests. Every toilet will have a bidet instead of toilet paper. We'll use projectors instead of TVs. Nobody will smoke because it's expensive, unhealthy, creates litter, and is a fire hazard and secondhand smoke risk. We won't have dyes and additives in our food. Everyone will be cremated to save space, as land will be a scarce resource. We'll find ways to use plastic and other trash as fuel or human waste as fuel. Everyone will have an adjustable base bed like a sleep number. Germs will be sanitized and bugs zapped by walking under a blue light in a doorway. Vehicles won't have blind spots. Roads won't get potholes. You won't see crosses and cigarette butts at intersections. Instead of chiropractors or massages, we'll get professionally stretched. We'll all be into skincare, sunscreen, and staying really healthy. Voicemail won't have the annoying beep. Radios won't exist. Newspapers and magazines won't exist. They'll cure things like cancer, diabetes, and dementia instead of relying on expensive medicines with nasty side effects. You'll do your own manicure at home with a little robot that is more hygienic and affordable. Dogs and cats will use toilets. You won't sit in the sun or rain for sports. They'll reuse Olympic facilities. Nursing homes will all have lifts in the ceilings and devices to help people in bed at the push of a button. Death with dignity will be a thing. You'll take a test to vote at 21. We won't file taxes every spring because it'll be automatically managed and adjusted throughout the year. Black Friday won't be a thing because people will shop throughout the year instead of falling for fake sales and acting like Christmas is a surprise. Apartments will have more storage space and will come with washers, dryers, dishwashers, microwaves, pantries, and garages. Everyone will have cameras on their homes and vehicles. Everyone will travel more, prioritize experiences and people, work from home with flexible hours, get paid immediately, and have a good work-life balance. We'll wear glasses or contacts to take pictures and record movies. You'll have one notebook for school that scans your writing into your computer, and you won't print anything. Most people will homeschool and learn at their own pace without summer breaks and snow days. You can talk on the phone with a hologram. Gardens and fields will be inside to avoid droughts, floods, hail, tornadoes, and bugs. Drones and cameras will police cities. Drones will deliver mail, food, and medicine. You'll clean or cook with automation or robots, much like robot vacuums, and they'll mow and handle vehicle maintenance and home repairs to free up your time. We won't drive because vehicles will be automated.